Hey everyone, it's Krista from Krista Irene Art, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about abstract art and painting abstracts and how to get started with that. Sometimes it can be overwhelming to have, a blank canvas in front of you and not know where to start with your painting. So I am going to show you the materials that I use to create abstract art and how I start with different paintings. I don't always start the same. So I'm going to give you a few ideas on how to begin and the tools I use. So the first thing I wanted to do was go over the different types of abstract paintings that I've done, and then I'll get into my process and the materials that I use. I started with abstracts. I like to do abstracts on paper simply because if you do a lot of canvases, where are you really going to store them? So a lot of practice on paper. I personally like this style of paper. This is a Strathmore heavy duty. I think this is watercolor paper. So I prefer to do my abstract paintings on watercolor paper or canvas. So I also use acrylic paints, which I'm going to show you. It looks like this one was acrylic paints, matte medium, and oil pastels. Sometimes when you're doing an abstract painting, you can just be throwing the color out there, creating patterns, just mixing and having fun, but sort of a figure emerges. So that's what happened with this one. And I really love it when a figure emerges from the art and I sort of just pull it out. So I really enjoy that one. I like the soft colors with pops of bright. I also really love dark shades of black. It's one of my favorite things to do on an abstract painting is pops of black. This one I was practicing. The other good thing about abstract art too is for me personally, I like to be able, you can turn it upside down, you can have it landscape or portrait, and it can go any which way depending on the person who is viewing the art. For me, when I view it, I like this way, but also I like having pops of gold. So gold, black, and then soft colors. Some people use a lot of color pencils too, or different materials on mixed media, like a mixed media type abstract. I stick mainly to acrylics, and sometimes I'll put something on top of that one. I really liked this one, and then I varnished it, and all the brightness sort of faded away. So one thing I learned is I personally don't like varnishing my artwork because it takes away from the depth of it. That's what I discovered. I play with shapes. You can also scratch off the paint when you're painting it, and this was a lot of fun. I haven't done abstract in a while, so I'm looking forward to showing you guys the materials I use and how I get started. This was kind of an abstract, but then it kind of looks like a floral. One of the very beginning of my abstract journey. Most of these ones are the beginning of my abstract journey because I could tell it doesn't fade as much. I used a lot of different materials. This one I also varnished, but I tried a glossy varnish, and I still don't like the varnish. I love this one. I don't know what I was doing here, but I love all these colors and the circles and shapes that go with it. So this is my type of abstract art. I don't, abstract, some people have more sort of relaxing abstracts with a lot of white and places in the background to rest the eye, but I kind of like throwing it all on the paper and creating something really bright and messy too. So I'm gonna show you guys the materials I use, and then I'm going to show you how I start, like a few ways to start an abstract painting. So here are the materials I use, and I make sure I have these brushes, just cheap brushes from, I don't know if I got them at like the dollar store or Michael's or something. I also really like having, because one of the things I do sometimes is scratch the paint off. I hope you guys can see it. Yeah, I use these tools. I love these because I also do a lot of palette knife painting and experimenting with, the thicker acrylics. I really like that. Another way to scrape, or you could use a credit card as well, but I will either put paint on here and scrape it down, or I can use it to scrape paint off. So I really like these. Any of these fun tools that you can get. Sometimes going to somewhere I'm from Canada. I don't know if you guys have Home Depot or Kent or somewhere. And you can get these little scrapers for cheap. Sometimes when you go to the art store to buy fancy palette knife type stuff, it's way more expensive. So sometimes I'll even use the end of my brush, if it's depend on the brush, to scrape some paint off, or you can use a pencil. So I have a variety of paint brushes. Depends on the size of your paper, how big the brush is that you're going to use. So I have a whole bunch of different, paint brushes. And some are, I don't really go for expensive, but some are sort of midpoint or just really cheap paintbrushes, because especially at the beginning when you're playing around a lot, you can ruin brushes really quickly. So I don't care about the price of it. Maybe one day I'll get myself expensive brushes. I talked about in my last video, and I'll put it in the description of this video, about matte fluid. I like matte medium. I love the heavy matte gel, especially for abstract. You can create a lot of texture with this. And I have molding paste. That's really nice too. You don't even have to buy molding paste. You can go to, again, like a home hardware store and get some kind of like paste there, like a molding paste there. It doesn't have to be art supply, but I go to Michael's or art stores, supply stores, way more than I go to like home hardware type places. The other thing I like, so satin medium. So even though I don't really care to varnish my paintings, it bothers me because it takes away from all the different things you can look at, and it flattens it, in my opinion. You don't get to see the scratches and the shiny and the flat parts of a painting. It just makes it all one, so I don't like it. But what I do is I mix my acrylic paints with the satin medium so that you can create sort of a transparent type paint wash when you're painting on top of your abstract art. And I just have these varnishes from all the times I've tried to varnish, and every time I have felt that I have ruined many paintings because I don't like varnishing. And then there's the iridescent gold. I love this. This is like actual gold to me. I love adding it to every painting that I can. So I also use gesso, but I must have run out of gesso and not noticed because I haven't been doing abstract paintings for a while. So gesso is a huge one, and you can get clear gesso and white gesso, but today I'm going to have to use, unless I can run and find gesso somewhere, which I probably have it somewhere. Today if I don't have gesso, I'll use a matte medium fluid, only because I like the texture of it. It's flat and it's not shiny. And for whatever reason, I like using gesso or a matte medium or something to start my paintings. And if I want texture, I'll use a molding paint. And again, to create really fun lines and places to grab your interest in an abstract painting, you can use these tools as well. I'm just going to do a little close up so you can see the materials that I use. And now I'm gonna show you guys some ways to start a painting. Okay, everyone, I'm going to show you a few ways to start a painting. I did find the gesso that I use. It's just, I will use Liquitex Professional. I guess this is Professional. That's what it says. Or I use Basics, especially when you're just practicing and having fun. Honestly, Basics works just fine. So I found my gesso. This is clear gesso. I usually like the white gesso too because I like the way it mixes, but that's okay. I will use this. Also, I don't think I mentioned, I use parchment paper as my palette because I can easily get rid of it versus, sometimes I'll also use an old tin for baking as a palette, but in this case, sometimes I just like to put the paint on the parchment paper and get started. So I just pour some clear gesso on I'm gonna back up a bit so you could sort of see. Let's see if I could sort of do this if you can see the paint. There. Okay, so I'll pour some gesso on there, and then I just pick whatever colors I like the best. I'll start with the black, but one way to get started, so I'm going to show a few sections. One way is I will get a pencil, right? I'll get a pencil. Whoops. I also have like a peel off China marker. Sometimes I'll use watercolor pencils. So just pencils, watercolor pencils, whatever. You can start this way, and you can just start. Really, it's the beginning of an abstract painting. You're going to have a lot of layers. You're just having fun, and you're sort of trying to make yourself feel free. Because I find when I'm painting it, whenever I try too hard, that's when I have the least amount of fun. I have watercolor pencils too. I love these. These are Derwent Inktense. I enjoy these as well. So this is just one way to get you started, to put stuff on the page. And if it's abstract, just try not to draw a picture, because then you're going to lock yourself in to creating something based on that picture. And the last thing you want to do is lock yourself in at the beginning. So then I get just any old paintbrush that I like. I'll pick up the gesso. This is clear gesso. I like white because white is also great, but this is clear, and you can see this is just the first layer. Usually if you're doing an abstract painting, there's going to be a lot of layers. So I like that. So I'm just going with the flow. The minute you think is the minute you're going to not trust yourself. So just getting started there. And that's one way. And then you can just keep doing layers. Like I personally would add some white to this. I have a big jar of this paint. So now I'm just going right in. And I personally like it when things blend in, and I'm not caring if I cover everything up or not, because this is layer one. And when I do abstract paintings, I am doing many, many layers. It's not one layer, it's so many until I feel like it's complete. I don't know, I like the feeling of a lot of layers. So that's one way, by just using a pencil, right? And getting started and just putting paint on paper and getting started. Another way that I really enjoy doing is I'll get a sort of smaller paintbrush like this, and I will write a word out. I seem to love the word love. I use it a lot. So sometimes you can just put nice words, whatever you're feeling, or shapes. But in this case, I'm going to start with words. If I want to do a shape, I also like this one. So I might get into it with the shape here and just be like, oh, cool. And again, you're making a mess at the beginning. You're just putting paint on paper. And so with this, I might do something like, and just go with wherever it takes me. And so once I start going wherever it takes me, then I just get little ideas, and I just do whatever I feel like. And you saw the last painting. I don't know if my hair is in the way. The last painting, I loved doing circles. So, and I also really like like black and white, and just I like the way it blends. So I'm not overly worried about making a mess. More shapes. So the key point when you're doing an abstract is to just start. Whether you're putting words on paper or putting pencil on paper. And the other thing I like to do is a lot of times I will get some paint, a paintbrush, and I literally make a mess. And I like the way that looks. And that's how I get started. So I think those are a couple of ways to get started. Again, it's just putting paint on the brush and just making marks, because it adds some nice texture and shapes. The second way is to just get a marker, China marker or a pencil, and just get right in there. And any old shape will do. You're really just putting something on the paper. And the third way is to spell a word out, whatever you feel like spelling out, and then just going from there. So those are some great ways to get started with an abstract painting. So I think what I'm going to do now is just put this in time lapse and then see what I can create with this so you guys can see the rest of the process. So this is where I'm going to stop for today with this abstract painting, simply because the sun is starting to set, so I can't videotape anymore, but this is how it looks for now. And I'll probably leave it a few days because I like the way it looks right now, and before I overdo it, which sometimes I do when I paint, I'll let it sit for a week or two and then decide if I want to go any further or if I'm just going to leave it as is. So thanks for following along, everyone, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you start an abstract painting. So have a great day. Thanks.